So by way of introduction, my name is Kerri. I'm a counseling therapist here in New Brunswick. I am sometimes called the coffee and conversation counselor. Oops, I've just done something wonky here with my video. This is all new to us. I work with individuals and groups to support their mental well-being, and one area where I really love the work that I do and I've spent a lot of time in is in the arena of self-care and self-compassion, in particular as they relate to reduction of compassion fatigue, really negating the impact of vicarious traumatization and preventing the risk of burnout. So those are some areas in which I work, and they really do become relevant as we start talking about connection today. So just some housekeeping before we get going. You'll notice that you can't see necessarily other participants. That's because we have video muted as well as all mics muted except for mine. You'll see another participant in your window. That's Marie-Cécile. She works for the Canadian Mental Health Association as a community education coordinator in the Kent County area. And she will be providing bilingual translation of any questions at the end of the session. So I'm going to ask that people hold their questions for the time being. If you have specific questions, you can put them in the chat box or in the Q&A. And at the end of the content delivery, then we'll go ahead and answer questions. That way we can kind of maintain the flow of the information and then answer questions at the end. I will try to be as clear as possible. I'm in the boonies, so our internet connection can be a bit sketchy at times, but we've done well so far. So today we're talking socially connected, staying socially connected while physically distancing. In the age of COVID-19, really a new normal has hit us, a new normal has arrived. As we isolate or reduce our physical contact as individuals and families, it's becoming really important that we activate the resilience of our communities in a virtual manner in order to gather information, to plan for education, to coordinate interventions at hospitals, and strategize about how to continue living, working, socializing, loving, learning, all through this venue, through screens. And honestly, this is uncharted for most of us, right? Some of us have worked online before, but it is completely different to have it mandated that we reduce our physical interactions. And right now, social distancing, or as I prefer to call it, physical distancing, being the norm at a global level is completely new. So this is what we're navigating today. What I want to really get to us to remember is that we are created for connection, right? Human beings are social creatures. And part of being so social is having connections that have enabled us to survive and honestly to thrive over millennia. What we have discovered through decades of research is that individuals who have experienced high levels of social isolation are at a higher risk for a variety of physical and mental health concerns, including high blood pressure, heart disease, depression, anxiety. And so it's really important, even more so than in the past, to really mitigate that sense of isolation, to reduce those feelings of disconnect. Although we need to be physically apart right now, we are emotionally, psychologically in this together. One of the things that can be really hard to hear, but is important to hear, is that although the circumstances are different, the situation that we are in collectively is really inducing a mounting sense of anxiety and panic for many people. And it is appearing in many cases to be very similar to that which is the response historically to things like terror attacks, living in war zones, living through a natural disaster. And that's because in those instances, as in this one, it can feel like there's a lack of resources. Information might be ambiguous or hard to come by, and instructions sometimes are vague or hard to understand. So we are experiencing very similar things at this time, and it's easy to feel helpless. It's easy to feel like we don't know where we are, what we're doing. So right now, activating that sense of community and that collectivity of healing as a group will be especially important. We can share stories, share accurate information, and really lift each other up as an antidote to that sense of isolation. So now we have an opportunity to be a little more creative. Social distancing or physical distancing can be a really big source of strain and pain. And to make it bearable, we really need to insist on maintaining, really high levels of emotional and social support. One of the ways we do this is through social media, and never has there been a greater emphasis placed on the importance of social media for providing us with connection and context. Because right now, so many of our communities, and community means so many different things that we can talk about shortly, but many of our communities are now going entirely online. It's really important to remember that people who are socially vulnerable, maybe some of our older adults in our community, are more likely to struggle in this uncertainty and with this technology. And if those folks are forced to self-isolate, we have to be sure we have contingency plans in place to help them, to help those who are lonely or who have complex health problems, to make sure we have something really that we've strategized to support them. And of course, we can't replace the value of face-to-face interactions, of sitting in the room with someone and having a cup of coffee, but we do have an opportunity to be flexible, to be creative. So let's get creative today. Let's talk about ways that we can be creative in maintaining connection. So first of all, of course, we can use technology, right? Like which we're doing right now. This is really an interesting time to be in. I have participated in webinars as a participant. I've delivered online content in different ways, and I've done online counseling for several years. But doing this, talking about important information and sharing in this way is just as new to me as it is to the rest of you. When we can't see people in real life, I can't see my mom. I can't see, my older uncle. I can't see my uncle who has cancer. When we can't see them, we can try to see the image of their faces, right? We can use FaceTime. We can use Zoom, Google Hangouts, House Party, Facebook Messenger video. And these are ways that we can still feel connected using technology. I'm an introvert, which nobody believes, but I am. But I do get a bit of a lift from social engagement. So to help me combat that, I do a Facebook Live every day at 10:15 a.m. just to talk about positivity, about hope, about tips for coping. And I did this because I wanted my community and myself to have a place where we can have practical, hopeful conversation with tips, tricks, challenges, ideas. And for me, it's fun and comforting to have a place to tune in and engage with like-minded people. I've seen no shortage of posts about people who are playing board games via Zoom with their families, who are doing virtual movie nights and so on. So there's lots of opportunity using video to do those things. Some of us can use audio. My oldest daughter uses voice messages to talk to her friends. They send each other voice messages. Some people feel that it creates more of a connection than simply sending a written text. So you can do that. You can use your audio messages. Audio is also just like straight up picking up the phone and making a phone call. We could get super old school there. Or we can use text, right? Some people are really loving the idea of creating group text chains. And there's a lot of benefit to that. First of all, like great conversations are happening. Humor and information are flowing. You can ignore it when you want to. You can jump in when you want to. And because it's a group text chain, you can be fairly confident that when you need to talk to someone, there's going to be somebody who's willing to jump in. So that's a great way to kind of stay connected. Now, with our families, it can be helpful, excuse me, it can be helpful to create a family chat. So maybe you have some extended family members who don't live locally, who you want to keep updated on information. So I've shared this image of a Google, but there are different ways to create connection. Group chats for updates, encouragement, maybe setting up the best practices and plans for your elderly family members. So you can share plans that way through Google Docs, videos, Hangouts, even conference calls. So it's a great way to just stay connected with your family through using the technology. But let's talk about other ways that we can stay socially connected. There was a really great idea, and I try to avoid the Pinterest rabbit hole because I know that once I start going into Pinterest, I'm going to be stuck there for hours. But there was a really great idea that came up on Pinterest around Thanksgiving last year. Excuse me, I just need to take a drink. And it was about setting up a gratitude tree. And the idea was that you have a tree branch in your dining room and everybody has a leaf and they write down something that they're grateful for on the gratitude tree. Well, why couldn't we do that virtually, right? Set up a gratitude tree. So like your phone call trees when your home and school has an event and you've set the phone tree. This is a great exercise. Every member of your group posts a message or sends a text to other members to share something that they're grateful for. There is no shortage of research that reinforces the idea that gratitude improves our mental well-being. It reduces anxiety and depression. It is an important part of resiliency. So the trick behind giving thanks is recognizing that you have something to be thankful for. And this right now might be where we're struggling the most. Typically we're trained to see voids, right? We're trained to recognize what we don't have without recognizing what we already do have. So I would say challenge yourself to find something that you're grateful for. What is it that you can put on your gratitude tree? And being thankful does take practice, but it's a great way to turn our focus from the have not to have. And in doing that, we can help maintain connection and reduce our sense of anxiety. So I'm going to challenge you. What are you grateful for today? Well, I'm grateful. My dad dropped off some frozen fruit for us. I was so grateful. Our kids love smoothies, and my dad dropped off some frozen fruit, and that's what I'm grateful for today. Our kids having, smoothies for breakfast, and me having a smoothie for breakfast, and my husband. So there's my gratitude for today. Think about yours. Other ways that we can stay connected. Make a date. Now, of course, we can't go out to the movies. We can't go out and have a date. But, maybe you have a show that you've been watching and you love it. And you can set up a time and a date with your friend or someone that you care about to watch the same TV show, the same movie with each other at the same time, but in your own spaces. Message each other, text each other back and forth about your thoughts. Kind of like, I'm going to say Netflix and chill and not mean it like the way that, a lot of people mean it. But, sitting together on your own couches and sharing it. So maybe you're like half of North America and you're binge watching Tiger King, and you can do it together and text each other all of your, outrageous thoughts about what you're watching. There's so much technology. And I even read that Netflix has set up the capacity for you to watch the same show at the same time and kind of see each other. I'm not sure how that works, but it's worth looking into. So set up a date, set up a movie date, pop your popcorn, sit on your own couches and watch a show together. One of the things that pre-COVID happened were these challenge groups, right? You would see those on Facebook and Instagram and so on, and they typically revolved around fitness. But what if it wasn't just about fitness? What if it was finding a buddy, an accountability buddy, or a group of friends to set some daily challenges with? It could involve healthy habits like walking or planking or whatever fitness routine you want to include. Maybe it's about challenging each other to maintain a mindful practice or a meditative practice or a creative pursuit. Hey, we all said we're going to do write in our journals every day. Did you do it today? And this is a great way to encourage each other and an opportunity, again, for a daily check-in to maintain some motivation. So this is another way to stay socially connected in this time of physical distancing. Create a daily challenge group. Now, what about other kinds of groups? Well, community. Most communities, whether it's your municipality, your county, here provincially, or your community of dance or running or yoga or punk rock or, parents of kids with exceptionalities, we all have community. So our local communities typically have a social media group. Join it. Join your social media group for your community, whatever your community looks like. And this will keep you up to date with what's going on directly around you and also within that specific community of yours. They may have tips for including ways that you can reach out, connect with someone who is not being able to really be resilient in this time, maybe find ways to help them be assisted by you. So join your social media community groups. It's a great way to connect. Adding on to that, we can still stay active in our communities from home. So it can probably sound a little bit like, well, how's that work? How can we stay active in the community when we're supposed to stay away from our communities? Well, maybe there's remote options, right? Maybe your organization, maybe it's a political organization, a faith-based group, a nonprofit, maybe they need people to make phone calls, to send emails. They rely on volunteers. So we can still do that from the comfort of our own homes. So being engaged in community-based activities doesn't have to stop. And that's really important because so many of these community-based organizations really do run on volunteers. And if our volunteers can't physically go, we can't allow these important community partners to fall apart because they don't have physical connection. So maybe volunteering in your community digitally, virtually, is a great way to stay active and to stay connected. And to ensure that when this is all done, those important community agencies and nonprofits are still functioning and still able to support our communities in the ways that they've done for so many years. Oops. I already talked about gratitude and how important that is. But one of the ways that we can really support our own mental health is to help others. So we've been talking about technology, but you know what? There are, and we're, I'm an eager adopter of these tools for social engagement, right? I'm an early adopter. I love the technology. I'm not always good at it, but I enjoy it. But there are other people who need to be taught how to use them or really to be encouraged to see their value. And if you naturally feel the impulse to connect with others, look around you. Look around and see who needs more support. Maybe you can get on the phone with an older family member and help them set up a Facebook account. Or Instagram, or golly, even Snapchat or TikTok, right? I would love to see everybody's grandma on TikTok. That would be awesome. So maybe reach out and help them learn how to use the stuff that maybe we know how to use intuitively. For most of us, the routines of daily life provide us with lots of social engagement, sometimes even when we don't necessarily want it. But now we must really actively create that engagement. So offering help to those who don't necessarily have the tools or the resourcing to do this, again, being mindful of Department of Health recommendations regarding distancing, finding ways to help them get connected can help us feel good too. So maybe that's something we could do to maintain community. Sunday dinner. That's a tradition in my family, whether it's at my dad's house, when I was living in Nova Scotia, at my mom's house, and more recently at our house, we love Sunday family dinner. It is something where we sit down, we connect, we laugh, we eat far too much, we show love by feeding people, but we can't do that right now, and that's really hard. And for many people, the cultural connection of a meal is really an integral part of feeling safe, of feeling secure, and of feeling part of. So it's really important to continue that cultural connection in ways that aren't defined by just sharing updates about COVID-19. So maybe suggest suggest a digital Sunday dinner. Yeah, I'm literally saying have Sunday dinner digitally. Maybe plan to all have the same meal. Set your tables, put your fine china, your best linens, dress up, put on, your lipstick, do your hair, get your kids in their finest attire, put the crystal out, and everybody sit down at the table at the same time and have a phone or a laptop or an iPad so that everybody can see each other. And you're still sharing the tradition of your shared meal. And we know that sharing a meal together is such an important part of so many cultures that losing that can feel really, really difficult, very painful, but we can still accomplish that in a digital way. And again, going back to my previous point about helping some of the older adults in our community or those who don't have the technology to get online with it, this will help them to maintain that connection. Because if they don't have that connection, how can they have digital Sunday dinner with us? So let's continue to nurture each other in that way through connecting through meals. What are some other ways? Other ways that we can maintain connection? Well, this is something I've been talking about doing for a long time, and now here's my opportunity, right? This is our opportunity right now. Start a club. What if you started a book club or a film club or a Great Dane Appreciators Club, and you met digitally and you found ways to maintain connection with a shared interest? We go to clubs. I know my stepmom goes to book club every month. I've been in service organizations. I've been in Run Club. What if we did this online? Maybe your thing is quilting. Why couldn't you, share pictures of your latest project and ask for tips and tricks? Or maybe, your thing is model trains. Same thing. Share videos, pictures, ask questions, create your community, build your capacity for connection by sharing an interest. Why not? Is there a better time to do it? I don't think. Now is perfect time as far as I'm concerned. One of the things that is popping up for a lot of people is disappointment. Disappointment about canceled events, birthday parties, concerts, live theater events. And what I've been really encouraged to see is the way that people are moving events online. I've seen that the Metropolitan Opera has moved so many of their operas online. Last night was an amazing concert with Elton John and Tim McGraw, and I'm just the big names are incredible. They moved a concert online, and we can do this. One of my favorite ones that I've been participating in as a viewer, nobody wants to see me sing, is hear me sing, is the Ultimate Kitchen Nova Scotia Kitchen Party Online. Ultimate Online Nova Scotia Kitchen Party. It's hard to say. That was started by a gal in Pictou County, Nova Scotia, Heather Cameron, and it has just exploded. They've created this really fun event online where everybody joins in. I have seen so many videos of people who are having their kids' birthday parties online. So, Zoom parties and Google Chat and Hangout parties. And it's just so great to see so much of this happening that we're still engaging. So consider moving your event online. If it's maybe a fundraising event or a community event of that nature, consider shifting it online and allowing people to dial in and watch, participate, and have conversations around that at the same time. And there's no reason that we can't continue connecting in these ways. It's really important that we reach out. I've been talking about what we can do for us and a little bit about what we can do for others. But maybe there's someone that that you think might be really struggling, really, really being challenged by social isolation. It's so important to reach out and let them know you care. And this has always been important, but it's even more important right now. Call, pick up the phone. Really, I know it seems so, in 2020, it's such a strange thing to make a phone call for many people, but it really is important to pick up the phone and call. Check on their welfare, see how they're doing. Send an email, let them know that you're thinking about them. Text them. Being mindful of recommendations again from public health, leave a note on their door, chalk drawing in their driveway. I'm loving some of the stuff that we're seeing where people are putting notes in their windows, pictures in their windows, all across the world. And last night in Moncton, we saw it, supporting our frontline workers. I saw like the entire line of RCMP cars going and kind of saluting our healthcare workers at the hospitals. So reach out and let folks know that you're thinking about them, especially those who may be already socially isolated and struggling with feelings of disconnect or overwhelm. Maybe it's that single parent who's trying to get through this with young children and working from home and just feeling like they're just so alone in it. Maybe it's that elderly adult who lives alone and maybe has a fear of catching the virus by going out. Maybe it's someone with a mobility issue, right? So just reach out, connect. The value of a human connection, even in this way, just can't be discounted. I've already mentioned that we can volunteer for our community organizations, but I want to remind you that this is a really important way to connect. And senior centers, right? Often folks who are living in seniors complexes or in assisted living are really disconnected to begin with. So what if you volunteered to share a video? And I know that Samantha Robichaux, who's a fiddle player and violin teacher here in this area, has been sending videos to the seniors' homes of her students playing and so on. What if we sent notes? What if we sent video messages to home care facilities, to hospitals, to the staff at our grocery stores? What if we did that? Volunteer to start an email chain or a call chain or a message chain. And I don't mean like a chain letter, I mean just like a domino effect, I guess, of messages of support and encouragement and connection. I don't know, maybe that would make you feel good too. So what about our kids? I mean, all of these things do apply to our kids, of course, but these kids have grown up and have been born into technology. And in many ways, this is just second nature to them. In fact, for some, it's like their first language. We're really concerned with screen time, as we should be. However, right now, children's social time, teenagers, tweens, young adults' social time is often screen time. And that was like pre-COVID. And now it's even more so. And we're so used to trying to minimize our kids' use of screens. But right now, those screens can be providing really critical social interactions with their friends and their family. You know, maybe one of your kids is having a FaceTime play date to do Minecraft or Fortnite. Maybe another child is connecting through Snapchat or TikTok videos. Another might be just doing group texts. So it's really important that although we can see our kids using screens, we have to recognize that they are actually utilizing screens to maintain their own social connections, because this is a really confusing time for them, right? It's confusing, it's conflicting. A lot of them are experiencing, tremendous disappointment from cancellation of sports and grad activities and school trips and extracurriculars. So they really need the opportunity to connect. And right now, the screens are the way that we're doing it. So understanding that need, and I'm not saying, let your kid be on there 24/7, but be aware, and be aware that they may be using it as a tool as opposed to an avoidance. So how much time? How much time do we need to spend using technology? How much time do we need to spend on FaceTime, on text, on Snapchat, on Instagram, on Zoom, on DoxyMe, on WebEx, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I think it's really important that we remember that frequency is more important than duration. When my husband and I were first dating, we lived almost 2 hours apart from each other. And I really found that it was the daily texts, the 2-minute phone calls, the short emails that made me feel connected. And yes, obviously the time that we spent together was really important. And those sometimes, hours long phone calls were great, but the way I really felt connected and I knew he was thinking about me, and I hope vice versa, was with a quick text of, hey, just thinking of you, or how's your day going? That quick phone call that said, I just wanted to say hi. It was the frequency of our interactions and not their duration that really made the difference for me, that really made me feel valued, loved, and connected. And it's equally true for the kinds of interactions that we're having today. With quick moments of connection, we can have more frequent check-ins, right? We can have more frequent, less lengthy connections, and that can really give us an opportunity to connect with more people. I really try to make an effort to connect with my parents every day. My dad lives locally. My mom lives almost 3 hours away. But I try to connect with them, whether it's with a Facebook message, a text, a quick phone call, an email, literally even posting like a funny picture or meme on their Facebook timeline, something. I try to connect every day. I don't know that having 5-hour-long conversations would be helpful for us right now, but knowing that I'm connecting with them makes me feel better, and I hope it makes them feel better. I know that when my brother sends me a goofy video, and he lives in Boston, or just outside Boston, I know he's thinking of me, and I feel connected. So just the quick little interactions can really go a long way. You do the same thing with your kids, with your colleagues, your work friends, just a quick note that says, hey, thinking of you. So intentionally trying to maintain some daily contact instead of, an hour-long call every week, a 2-line text every day. And again, you'll have to negotiate that with your own sense of what your family needs, individual experiences around that, and it'll be different for everyone, but this is just one suggestion that we can kind of dig into. It's also important, and right now I'm hearing this phrase so much, it's also important to remember that boring isn't bad, right? And my kids will tell you that, like, my most common phrase, other than please brush your teeth, please brush your teeth, please brush your teeth, and I get that from my former dental assistant mom, is that bored people are boring. My kids are like, what, Mom, what do you mean? Boring isn't bad. And I'm changing my tone on this. I'm completely changing my tune. Boring isn't bad. While we're communicating right now, we might not have a whole lot to report to each other, right? Because we're not out at dance classes and paint nights and hockey games, and we're not skiing, and we're not on vacations, and we're not doing all the things. But right now, no news is probably good news, right? I think I shared with some folks that my mom had been in the hospital and was tested for COVID. They thought she had it, and I was never so grateful to hear a diagnosis of pneumonia in my entire life. So no news was good news, right? So when we got a negative, that was the greatest thing I'd ever heard. So staying connected in those moments, through texts, through Facebook messages, and so on, when my mom was in isolation, was more valuable than I can say. So more important to remember is that any social connection is better than none. We're all missing companionship right now. We are all missing it. And maybe we're even just missing the quiet presence of other people. Maybe you live alone and you just like to have somebody else in your space. My friend Natalie Davison posted the other day, I miss humans, right? I miss humans. That is absolutely a normal experience right now, to be missing the presence of others. One of the things that I remember when I was a student was sometimes just being in the library with your friends and doing your work together, even though maybe we all had our earbuds in, or of course in those days it would have been like big giant headphones. Maybe, we miss that, where we're just collectively working individually. So our teens and our tweens do that as well. Like when they're working on school projects, when they go to library, or when they go to a coffee shop to work, maybe we could help them recreate this atmosphere by letting them log on to a Zoom call or a Facebook call where they can all do their work silently, right? They might just put themselves on mute so they don't hear each other typing away, but they can see each other so that they feel together, that they feel connected, that they feel like they still are doing individual work collectively. And that way they can recreate that feeling of being at the library working with their friends on projects. You might do that with your work group as well. You know, if you normally are used to working in, you know, an open office space or, you know, cubicles, and you're used to having other people around while you do your work, what if you did that? You know, mute each other, but still know that there's somebody there. Is it boring? Probably, right? How exciting is it to watch someone else do their work? But it's not bad, and it still is a kind of connection. So I'm changing my tune from bored people are boring to boring isn't bad. Don't tell my kids. Now we can also redirect our energy. I read an article, and I can't remember what paper it was. It was a paper out of Ontario. Paper, a digital newspaper, because, you know, it's 2020 and I don't get copies of Ontario newspapers delivered to my doorstep. A lady in Ontario was feeling really overwhelmed. So she said that the way that she chose to cope with feeling distanced and disconnected and with the anxious energy she had was to redirect it into a project she could do for her community. So I'm coming back to that whole community sense here again. And I'm just going to read what she said. She said, I accept that I feel this. And if you accept that you feel it, you'll be able to do something better. I can't sit here and cry and worry all day. I have to put my focus on other things. So with personal protective equipment in short supply around the world as countries respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, she began collecting those items from people throughout the area after connecting on Facebook. She said her community has really come through to provide those supplies. She goes on to say, I needed to get a project going that was safe and that I could do to focus on, to turn my anxious energy into something that was useful. And I feel if I can even help to protect 10 nurses that I did something. So how can we redirect our energy? Well, I'm seeing all kinds of folks who are doing things like rearranging closets, right? Finally purging out those clothes that you've had for 10 years that you haven't worn in 7 years. Rearranging pantries, scrubbing out fridges. What other kinds of projects, right? Redirect the energy. How does that make us feel connected? That's a great question. There are groups, again, there are groups online for decluttering, for your Pinterest ideas. So connect with the way that you're redirecting your energy. Again, it's about building your community, finding ways to create community when you're not out in the physical community. Now, something we haven't talked about, because I've been talking about being on social media, being online, reading, connecting. We haven't talked about disconnecting. And I think it's really important and equally important that we talk about that. Take a break. Breathe. Take time away from social media and news. This is an important piece of feeling connected in a healthy way. Maybe set aside 1 hour, twice a day, where you will take a break from all social media, all COVID-19 related information. Disconnect and distance yourself from it. We have continually shifting information, whether it's around rates of infection, local, provincial, federal policies from our neighbors to the south. It is easier than ever to stay glued to our news sources, to just be focused on our phones, on our iPads, on our laptops, on our televisions. Make sure to take a break. Constantly trying to take in new and frankly stressful information can really trigger our fight, flight, freeze response. And the last thing we need to do is to activate that right now, or to activate it more fully. We want to reduce our cortisol as opposed to increase it. So scheduling 2 separate hours through the course of your day to take a break, and maybe you'll do more, but being really intentional about at least 2 hours, gives your brain time to recharge, to rest, to really kind of process and integrate new information. So turn off the news notifications on your phone. Watch a movie. Take a walk where you can, or whatever else you can think of to spend time away from the news, from the constant stream of information. If you're spending this time with, your family, make this a corona-free conversation hour. It's board games or puzzles, crafting, or building a, sippy cup tower, whatever it is. It's free from COVID-19 conversation. Even better, add another 2 hours to bookend your day. So giving yourself an hour at the beginning and at the end of your day to take a break and slow your brain. Get ready to start your day with an hour free from news and end your day with an hour free from news. Getting you really intentionally ready to wake up refreshed, recharged, and to allow you to go to bed relaxed. In the same vein, avoid flooding your news feed. Avoid flooding your social media feed. Social media, as we've talked about for the last 45 minutes, is an amazing tool to maintain connection. However, it can be so easy to get caught up in the overload of panicky COVID-19 posts that flood other people's news feeds. Unfollow. It's okay to do that. You don't have to block someone, but you can unfollow them. Take a break from your great Aunt Sue if all she does is post horrible news stories and they're just overwhelming to you, right? Choose your exposure. Follow legitimate and credible sources as opposed to, Karen from Facebook, who has suddenly become an expert in infectious diseases. Take a break. You don't have to flood your news feed. In Instagram, follow people who uplift you, who make you feel good, right? Same thing with TikTok, the crazy little dances. Use technology in a way that supports your well-being as opposed to tearing it down. When we have too much exposure to negative information, scary information, unreliable information, this really does increase our feelings of uncertainty and anxiety and fear. So when we're mindful of the sources of information, and when we ensure that we're accessing good quality, reliable, accurate, well-measured, well-presented information, then we can feel calmer. And it gives us the opportunity to be able to connect. Because when we're completely flooded with all of this and we're filled with anxiety and our cortisol is just flying up, it is really hard to maintain those connections in all those other ways. It's hard to maintain quality connection. And I really want you to think about the quality of our connections as opposed to connecting over fear, connect over community. Part of that, and this is a really hard one for a lot of folks, is to release our need for control. I know I can see the hands flying up in the room, but no, I want to control things. I want to be in charge. I'm one of those people for sure. I want to control what I can control. And I also sometimes want to control things that are completely outside of my locus of control. Talk about anxiety inducing. I can't feel truly connected to other people when I'm worried about controlling things that I can't. And it's so important to remember that what's happening right now is outside of our control. All we can do is do our part, right? And so whether that's the physical distancing, the staying home, except for essential trips, following the recommendations from our public health and so on, that's what we can do. That's our part. But the other thing we can do is connect. We can control that. We can control how we connect and with whom we connect. And part of that is to just be there for each other and to be there for people who are struggling. And sometimes that's as simple as sending a text that says, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I've got your back. I hear you. But does it really matter? Does all of this talk about using technology and finding ways to stay, socially connected while physically distanced, does it really matter? Yeah, it does. Strong ties with family, with friends, with community provides us with happiness, with security, with support, with a sense of purpose. Being connected to other people is so important for our mental and physical well-being, and it's a protective factor against anxiety and depression. Yeah, it matters. Just as each of us has a basic need, every human has a basic need for food and shelter. I'm going like super Maslow's hierarchy of needs right now, but we all have those basic needs for food, shelter, water, right? And as we go up, we also have a basic need to belong to groups and to form relationships. This is circling right back to the very beginning when I said we are created for connection. Humans have an innate desire to be part of, the desire to be in a loving relationship, to fit in at school, to join a club, to avoid rejection and loss, to see your friends do well, to see your family members loved and cared for, to share good news, to cheer on your favorite sports team, to check in with each other on Instagram, on Facebook. These are things that motivate us, and they really motivate and bring out an incredible array of thoughts, feelings, creative actions. So yeah, it matters. The connection absolutely matters. Physical distancing does not have to equate to social isolation. Even COVID-19 does not need to force us to be alone. Now more than ever, we need to find smart ways to stay connected. We need to find smart ways to feel part of. So instead of calling it physical distancing or social distancing, let's call it physical distancing. Let's connect. Let's build our senses of community. Let's come together, be there for one another, staying close to each other through technology, reaching out to the ones that need our help. We can isolate ourselves in our home, but we don't have to isolate ourselves from our communities, from our friends. We don't have to be socially disconnected. Regardless of how long we need to stay locked up in our homes, how long we have to stay away from our businesses, how long we have to physically remove ourselves from the vulnerable in our population, we can still remain connected as community. We can still reach out to our neighbors via phone, call our elderly family members. We need each other more than ever. We can practice physical distancing and social connection, because more than ever, we need that to feel safe, to feel secure, and to move forward. So I'm going to show you our resources here, and then I'm going to ask some folks to share their questions. Coworkers that are home with no connection via internet and feeling isolated. Yeah, do you know what? That is a really great question, right? And unfortunately, here in New Brunswick, we do have a lot of rural population with either low or no internet connection. And, and I apologize, I did really focus on the internet technology piece of things. So this is where the phone calls become really important. The connecting via phone call, whether it's a conference call or just a quick check-in. Canada Post is still running. We can legitimately still send letters. And that's a really important way. I've seen some really kind of cute and cool things, and I'm not sure how much they fall into the recommendations from Dr. Russell around physical distancing, but I've seen things like exchanges on doorsteps. I have two friends, one who is working at the hospital and one who is in another medical field, and they have done drop-offs of packages, care packages on each other's doorsteps when they know that one or the other is maybe not home or not working. So doing some connection that way. So finding ways to connect with your coworkers that are feeling isolated without internet. Again, that requires some creativity, but I think it's a really important question, and I will think more on that, and I will post some ideas on my Facebook page. Will CMHA be doing anything for help with ergonomics, stretching, etc.? Back and neck have been very, right? All this extra technology. I don't know. I can't answer for CMHA on that. I do know that CBI, which is an occupational a recovery group, occupational health and therapy, physiotherapy, they have been posting on their Instagram page daily tips for ergonomics. And a number of the local physiotherapists, and I'm speaking to my local area because they're the ones I know. So Davidson Physiotherapy on Instagram and Facebook, Rehab One, they have been posting tips and tricks as well. So it'd be great to check those out. But great question for CMHA, and it would be outside my scope of practice, of course, as a mental health professional, but certainly a great question. Marie DeRoche, thank you for yes, the gratitude tree. Love it. I love that you're going to do that, and a great idea for Easter and Easter eggs and celebration. So thank you for doing that. Kerri, drop-offs on the doorsteps is a great idea. Really helps others see that people care about them. Also like the aspect that social distancing does not have to be social isolation. Thank you. Thank you, Kerri. Yeah, I love the idea of the drop-offs on the doorstep. We really are all in this together, and we don't have to be alone. We may have to be physically alone, but we don't have to be alone. And I think that's a really important thing to take away, is that we really, truly are in this together. And the more that we support each other, the more we lift each other up, the more we connect, the easier this will be. And I'm not suggesting that experiencing a global pandemic is an easy thing, not by any stretch of the imagination, but there are things we can do to ease the disconnect and the discomfort. Well, I can't thank you all enough for being here. This is a strange time that we're in. We are experiencing something that is legitimately new to us. Shelley, thank you so much for this. I'll be using a lot of these ideas, and I'm also changing my opinions about being bored. I've not gotten there yet, though. Thanks, Shelley. Yeah, and it's really interesting, right, around the boredom piece. And I think probably as our Department of Education starts to shift into some ideas for supporting our kids in particular, that conversation will be happening a lot more about boring and boredom. But we are all in this together, and I do appreciate your comments and your feedback, and anything more that we can offer you, please let us know. We are open to ideas, and we want to support people. Thanks, Diana. I'm glad that you benefited from that. Thank you. I really do wish you all well. Be safe, be kind, be gentle with yourselves. Give yourselves permission to feel what you feel. There's no right way to feel about this. You can be angry or sad or confused or conflicted or just apathetic. However you feel is the way you feel. Give yourself permission, treat yourself with some gentleness, and stay connected. So I'll hope to see you at the next one. Take care.